What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. Week 16 Cashing Points. It's a special show for a few reasons. It's Christmas. Welcome, everybody. I hope you're enjoying your Christmas week wherever you're at. Obviously, we have our guy, John Proctor, back this week. Johnny's here for a three-man show here with Scott. And our guy, Scott Barrett, took down the NFL Red Zone last week for 25 grand. Scott, I'll let you tell the story about how that all transpired, but congrats to you, man. Long time coming, and I hope you finally earned Johnny's respect here.
Yeah. 25K is pretty sweet. What's even sweeter is, grinding and been close so many times before, finally get it. What's going to be sweetest is Johnny finally admitting I am the DFS GOAT. I am superior to him in every capacity. Hashtag Team Scott. So it was Sunday was my girlfriend's first Sunday off in like 8 weeks. So I told her I'd spend some time with her, but watched all the 1:00 games. She's getting annoyed. Finally, she's like, all right, let's go to Costco. I've like never really been to Costco. And, I didn't expect it to be like this 4-hour long thing, but it did. I went back to like on the way to my car, some like methed out homeless lady made up some like elaborate story that was just clearly a lie. Asked for money. I gave her $10 from my wallet. Get in the car, driving, hit a really long red light, check my phone. And I'm like, what? Whoa. I'm in first place in the red zone staring at 25K. Every game's in the fourth quarter. And and that was it. It held. And so I missed out on my best sweat opportunity ever. Maybe that meth lady was magic and it was all karma. But yeah, that was awesome. Johnny, admit it. I'm the GOAT. I'm better than you at DFS. Let's do it.
No. But it was a good lineup. Congrats.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, that was a nuts, man. 206. And I know you didn't watch the games really, but I mean, honestly, ironically for your team, you kind of backed into like a really easy sweat because not much happened in those second halves there. So good on you, man. Huge win.
Terry McLaurin was a slight concern. I think if he scored that touchdown, it could have hurt me. But
yeah, man. Huge win. Huge for you, Scott. We're thrilled, man. And Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas to your girlfriend and the entire
birthday
Barrett
today.
Family. Hey, there you go, dude. Even better. Happy birthday to her.
Yeah. Now she's like, oh, this is my gift. Really? You're 25K richer and you got me socks.
Did you tell her though that you're just going to play a 25K 4-man and 100K or bust?
You just roll it.
I asked A Raven for his advice, like what tournaments to enter this week. And he was like, bro, just 4-man, 25K. Yeah, not going to do that.
Yeah. Exercise a little bankroll management. A little. Should we get into it here, guys? 9-game slate. Scott, I was saying before you walked away, before we started the show, I gaslit you into thinking last week was a good slate. I remember I started with that and you're like, no, it sucks. I was like, it's okay. You ended up winning freaking 25 grand and putting up 207 points.
That was part of it, as I was going to go light because my left eye has been twitching for like 10 straight days, which isn't a good sign. So I wanted to go light. But then I remembered every single week I go light, I have the nuts and I just like regret not doing that. So glad I did it.
Have you gotten your eye to stop twitching? Because that happened to me in like week 8 for like 3 weeks. And I thought I was going to have to go to the doctor, but then it finally stopped. But
yeah, no, it's still going. Yeah. That's the grind.
You probably just need some
grind,
sleep,
folks.
You probably just need some sleep. All right, let's get to it. Commanders, Jets. I always try to get the worst game in the 1 p.m. slate out of the way. We'll get through this game in about half a second here. Jets are getting 3, totals 37. Brian Robinson is going to play. He's still not practicing. He's got a hamstring injury. Commanders have a few offensive line concerns, and we just got news. The Jets are going back to Trevor Siemian. Zach Wilson has a concussion, so it'll be Siemian under center as a 3-point favorite at home against Washington. Scott, I'll kick it to you first, man, for your thoughts on this game. I mean, there's not much here. Brees, I think, is a strong technical value at 6,100, but we've been kind of fading him for weeks. What do you think about Brees in this spot? I mean, we're catching him as a home favorite, and Brees has been like massively game script dependent this year.
Yeah, since Washington traded their only 2 good defenders, we've been giving up the second most fantasy points per game to running backs, second most to wide receivers. Obviously, perimeter wide receiver ones have been destroying them. So that's the upside. Downside is Simeon really hasn't locked on to Garrett Wilson the same way that Zach Wilson has. He also only targeted Breece Hall once in a 30-0 beatdown last week. That was really where so much of Breece Hall's production has been coming from. Still, it's an awesome matchup. I like the idea of playing Simeon as like a cheap contrarian play with upside. You could also play the Commanders defense. Curtis Samuel, I think, makes the most sense on Washington side. It's not a good matchup for him, but it is a better matchup than for the other receivers. And he is the wide receiver one when healthy, especially with Sam Howell. McLaurin really went off after that quarterback change. Still pretty bad matchup overall. Chris Rodriguez maybe vaguely in play. I don't even know how. Yeah, 4,500 maybe vaguely in play, stacked with Washington's defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think this game's going to carry ownership. It's all going to be on the Jets side. Breece Hall probably top 3 in ownership for running back. Garrett Wilson probably top 3 or 4 for ownership. And I think the Jets will probably be the highest owned defense on the slate. So it's something you definitely have to work through if whether or not Simeon makes these guys viable. Obviously, we would rather have Zach Wilson in there. I mean, he's been horrendous, but he's at least had some spike games that have made these guys pop. Yeah, this one tough one to work through. Early in the week when I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, Breece is interesting, Garrett's interesting, but at ownership, I don't know if I really want to play these guys with Trevor Simeon. I mean,
yeah, it's a weird week on DK too, man, because there's really not a ton of good like 5K receivers, especially if Jaden Reed doesn't play, and I don't think he will. Garrett Wilson's really going to pop in that like mid-5 range, so I'm with you on that. I was just looking through it. Like Trevor Simeon has only thrown 39 passes this year. His lead target is Tyler Conklin with 8, Xavier Gibson at 6, and then Garrett Wilson at 5. So not exactly great to your point, Scott. Tyler Conklin is 3,200. He's like a very thin play. He's splitting routes with Ruckert, their second-year tight end. But yeah, it's just a rough game. I'm with you, Johnny. I align with you. If Breece is going to get like 25%, I'd want to come in under the field on that.
Yeah, especially with Jets D owned, it's like you can't even stack him with a lower on D and get different. Yeah. I do wonder though, Scott, if like Simeon, knowing he's the starter coming in all week, will make things better for Garrett Wilson. I would hope, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
it's just been such a cheat code this year that I think you're right. Like, fine play for sure. Maybe a good to great play.
Yeah, you could definitely get Simeon at no ownership. No one's going to play him.
Yeah, I mean, there's a real chance that Simeon's their actual best quarterback too. I mean, there's a real chance. The markets are on this, by the way. I mean, it's been 3 all week. We've known it's going to be Simeon pretty much, I think, since like Tuesday. I mean, there's definitely a bull case argument for Garrett Wilson, but yeah, I'm more aligned with Johnny, especially in ownership right now. All right,
it is. I guess I'll just say quickly on the Simeon. I mean, similar team total. Not sure how much worse Simeon is than Nick Mullins, and Mullins will probably be the highest owned quarterback on the slate. So that's just an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, Mullins is going to be mega chalk. He projects so well at 5,300. I was talking to Jake about him on Tuesday, and I was like, man, if Mullins is going to be like 5 to 10%, he's really strong. He's not going to be even close to that. All right, Colts Falcons, keep it moving to a little bit better game here. Falcons are getting 2.5, 44.5 is the total. Jonathan Taylor is back, baby. Zach Moss is dealing with a forearm injury. I don't even think Moss is going to play here. They're going to get Mike Pittman back.
He's not at practice. They just said that like 5 minutes ago.
Well, there you go. Yeah, Moss is not going to play. So huge role coming for JT, who's been full practice all week. Mike Pittman's back through a concussion. He'll play and get lined up against AJ Terrell. On the Falcons side, they're going to go to Taylor Heineke. Shout out to Joe Dolan. Hospital Ball Heineke, one of the best nicknames of all time. But in all seriousness, I mean, Heineke is actually worse than Ritter, and the Falcons are flailing. They're trying anything here to stay alive. In the NFC South, which they got some help last night with the Saints loss. So there's that for Falcons fans. Johnny, I'll throw it to you first for your just immediate thoughts on JT. No Zach Moss this weekend. JT is just 7,200. I think his ownership's going to come way, way up here. He'll probably end up being one of the highest owned players on the slate here.
Yeah, I think he should. I mean, I think he's the best running back play on the slate, unless we get, some type of word that he's, not 100%. I think he probably is. Mm-hmm. And, just Colts RB1 has just been so good all year. And now it's like Colts RB1 is Jonathan Taylor with no Zach Moss and no one else really behind him. So I think he's probably best, mid to high price running back on the slate. And yeah, I would agree with you. I think that ownership will come up. My guess is with the news from today on Moss not being there, industry projections will probably boost him way above Rashad White.
Yeah, Rashad right now is projecting as the best play, but I'm with you. I think JT should be 1.5 points ahead of him. And they only have Trey Sermon behind him. So this is, like you said, not a situation where we're going to expect, JT probably to get anything less than like 65, 70% of the snaps. And at 7,200, I mean, that right there is a good, base case projection for him.
Yeah.
Scott, what do you think about JT here? And what do you think about Bijan on Falcons side at 6,300? I think, again, it's kind of like Brees. You can make a case for him as a technical value, but last week was an absolute train wreck.
Yeah, I think Taylor's a little overrated. It's just, Moss flopped as mega chalk multiple weeks in a row, and he was, 2,200 less. It's not a great matchup. What is it? A thumb injury?
Believe it was, yeah.
For Taylor, it was a thumb.
Maybe that impacts what he can do as a pass catcher, which makes him more game script sensitive, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, he's a good play for sure. It's just, if he's going to be as chalky as you guys are speculating, makes me a little nervous. Bijan Robinson, I think, is an insanely good play. I don't know what ownership looks like, but I was guessing people are going to be too scared to play him. But Falcons implied point total is 25% higher than their point per game average this year. Volume's been really strong. He ranks 5th among all slate eligible running backs in XFP per game. He's priced as the RB12. And I liked what one of those guys over at Underdog said. They thought what played into Bijan's usage last week was Carolina just running super heavy base personnel, a lot of stack boxes, and Arthur Smith favors Algier in that scenario. But again, 6,300 for a guy this good, legitimately good volume. Just, Arthur Smith going to Arthur Smith every fourth week or so. But, now he's playing for his job or coaching for his job, apparently. So, I like him a lot.
Yeah, and I think this is the spot too, Scott, that has hit like 3-4 times this year where the really chalky popular running back, you play the running back and defense on the other side. 3 times it's won the Millie Maker this year, that combo. So this is that spot again. Falcons are the favorite. Their defense does not project for ownership. I think as Taylor ownership comes up, Bijan's projected ownership will definitely come down too.
Yeah. 2 things. I mean, not only are Falcons favored, it was 1. It crept to 2. Now it's 2.5. So, I mean, it's sharp money's coming in on Falcons. And then I love Bijan on FanDuel at 7,100. I was kind of expecting him to come in at like 15%. And to your point on JT, it'll probably bring it down. I don't know, man. It's just this offense could be an absolute nightmare too. I get they're favored. It's also like Colts run defense has been really, really good when they have Grover Stewart in there. Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner, awesome interior defensive linemen. They're giving up just 3.3 yards per carry when Stewart plays. When he was suspended, it boosted up to like 4.5 yards per carry. Falcons offensive line has also been banged up as of late. I'm just giving the bear case against Bijan because I'm largely with you guys that I think, Falcons they have to load up Bijan with as many touches he can handle this week, but there is some downside for him for sure. But I do like him quite a bit. I think we're all out on Drake London here in the spot with Heineke. It's also a tough coverage shell matchup. Colts run the highest or second highest rate of cover 3 And Drake London has some really negative splits against cover 3 this year.
He's also not been great with Heineke either.
Yeah, well, Heineke can't throw the ball. He got killed on that one play too. Heineke came in for Ritter. I think it was in that Titans game where Ritter melted down again, and London got hurt. He stinks, man. Heineke stinks. Any interest at all in Pittman, Scott, against AJ Terrell? He is a pretty decent price for the insane amount of volume he's getting.
Yeah, he's reminded me a lot of Keenan Allen this year, just like the insane volume he's been getting. He's getting open. But that Terrell shadow does really make me nervous. At the very least, I see it as its ceiling limiting matchup. So not super high on my list. Maybe no interest in Alec Pierce or Josh Downs. Downs' usage is just like totally fallen off a cliff. Like he's back to the negative ADOT role.
I don't think he's healthy. He had that knee injury, and then he's just not been himself.
Yep. And it looks like Pittman should be back as long he practicing today, and so he should clear.
Yeah, he'll clear.
The receiver I'm most excited about, I think, is Jonnu Smith. He only ran a 33% route share last week, so like obviously that's concerning. But he's been Heineke's most productive receiver this year, and Arthur Smith, like people think he's just an idiot, but there is like logic behind what he's doing. And the whole Jonnu Smith thing is Jonnu Smith is his guy who smashes cover 3. He's averaging 2.6 yards per route run, well ahead of Kyle Pitts 1.8, Drake London 1.4, and the Colts play that second highest rate in the league, 50% of snaps.
Yeah, and people are talking about playing Pitts with Heineke because he's targeted tight ends a lot, but I was going to say the same thing. I think Jonnu is the one you want.
Yeah, well, we're all in agreement because Pitts is a slot receiver, and the Colts are awesome against slot receivers, giving up the 4th fewest yards per game to slots. And to your point, Scott, I mean, cover 3, 1 high, you're getting a guy, in Smith who, goes up the seams or goes to the outside, and they're trying to find voids in zone. So it makes sense. I mean, it's thin, but I'm kind of with you. I'm not on Pitts at all, not on London. And I think Smith is vaguely in play. Man, this game though, I mean, just given the context of this like 1 p.m. slate, 44.5 total, it kind of feels like we're kind of lower on this game given the total. This is the second highest total in the early slate. So definitely a pathway to shoot out.
Falcons have the 3rd highest total on the slate.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I mean, that's Bijan right there. There's your entire Bijan case. Colts run defense might be a little better than we think. Falcons offensive line's a little banged up, but that's your entire Bijan case right there. Seahawks Titans, keep it moving here. Seahawks are getting 3. It has moved through 2.5. 41.5 is the total. Geno will be back under center for the Seahawks after Drew Lock hero drive, 92-yarder last week. Geno's going to be back. He's full practice all week. On the Titans side, it'll be Ryan Tannehill under center. It hasn't been officially declared, but Will Levis is dealing with a high ankle injury. He hasn't practiced all week. Titans have half their team on the injury report. They're completely out of the playoff hunt. The only real injury note I have for fantasy is Nick Westbrook-Ikhine has a hand injury. He went to IR. Does thin out the Titans receiver group a little bit more. Treylon Burks is starting to play a little bit more too. He dealt with a really bad concussion in the middle of the season. Seahawks big note too is Ken Walker is dealing with a shoulder injury. They've been so weird with their injuries all year. I really don't know how much stock to put in it. They could just be giving him the week off to get him right for this game. I really have no clue. We'll see today. But Scott, let's start there on the Seahawks side since they're way more intriguing than offense. What do you think about Ken Walker this week? And what do you think about Seahawks in this spot against Titans?
Yeah, I think it's fine. Walker stacked with Seattle's defense is intriguing. It's like an on paper matchup, but one of the most game script sensitive players in fantasy averages 18.1 DraftKings fantasy points per game and wins this year. That would rank behind only both of the Miami running backs. I don't know if you mentioned Trevon Wesco. It looks like he's probably going to miss. Should lead to more playing time for Chigo Okonkwo, who has an awesome schematic matchup. He's been one of the most scheme sensitive players in fantasy this year. I like him more than I did last week. I didn't really like him that much last week though. Wide receivers, you can make a case for either one as a value. I think for the most part, they've been so disappointing this year that I don't like them as standalone plays, but maybe Geno Smith stacks. It's affordable. Tennessee's been bottom 5 to outside wide receivers for legitimately like 6 years in a row, and this season's no exception. So,
yeah.
So I think on Walker, it's whether or not Jeffrey Simmons plays. I think he's probably out again. DMP. Don't see if he's practiced today. I don't know if we'll get that yet.
Yeah, we haven't gotten that yet. But Titans, man, 5.1 yards per carry last 2 weeks without Simmons. And if Walker's clear, I think he's the best GPP running back on the slate. He's wedged in between Bijan and Brees. For tournaments, I think Walker's really, really strong. But again, the shoulder thing is also a concern.
Yep. And he's just a good running back. He's like one of the few guys who has like that home run, can put up 30 points with a workload. So, I think he's a great play. Just wanted to say again, Zach Charbonnet, what a horrible pick by the Seattle Seahawks. The guy isn't even good. So, yeah, I think that Walker makes a lot of sense. I like him with Seattle defense. Tennessee Titans just seem like a team that's just like falling apart at the end of the season.
Yeah.
I know that DeAndre Hopkins pops a little bit in projections around the industry, and I don't know. I mean, he's a guy I haven't really played a whole lot. He's had like that one game that popped up and then, pops in projections a little bit. He really hasn't done much though. I don't know if you guys have any interest in that.
Yeah, his 3 games with at least 25 DK, averages 9.6 in all other games. Seattle's giving up the second most fantasy points per game to wide receiver ones over the last 5 weeks. Really good schematic matchup. I don't think quarterback really makes a difference. His target share is actually better. His yards per team pass attempt better. With Tannehill, he just wasn't scoring touchdowns. I think you nailed it from the top, which is just like he hasn't really done anything this year, and he pops more often than he hits. And so I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, my favorite way to play this game is Walker with Hopkins, a little mini. Because I'm with you, Johnny. I haven't really been interested in playing Hopkins at all this year, but Tannehill's back in and he's trying to, stay in the league. He's going to pepper Hopkins. Man, Derrick Henry last week, what a freaking nightmare that was. Oh boy. No interest in going back to him last week. It is a good spot. I will say Seahawks have been really bad against the run as of late. They've been really bad against everything as of late, but just nightmare situation for Henry last week. Their offensive line got absolutely bullied in that game. And, Scott, your concern about him being washed was probably right, but Titans offensive line is a legitimate nightmare right now. And Johnny, to your point, they're a dead team. So yeah, on Seahawks here. We'll keep it moving. Lions, Vikings, really good game. Lions getting 3, 47's the total. Lions injury report is fairly clean. I will say on the Viking side, Alexander Madison is still not practicing. It looks like we're going to get Ty Chandler at 5,600. He's going to pop in all the optimizers. It's the best value on the slate and projections. So, Johnny, I'll throw it to you first. Let's have the Ty Chandler discussion. What do you think about him this week?
Yeah, I mean, he's a great play. I do think there's a lot of optimism on Vikings with Nick Mullins at quarterback against a Lions team that has been trending in the right direction. So I think just in terms of like Vikings being overowned, Chandler may be overowned, but in terms of usage, workload, and price, I think he's going to get 20 to 25 touches, in a dome. It's hard not to like, but I do have concerns just about playing too many Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver play on the slate at 8,100. That's not controversial. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you for sure. There's definitely that downside risk. Mullins could absolutely blow up here, but man, he projects so well, Scott, at 5,300. Mullins and Jefferson is going to be a really popular stack on DK. Is Mullins the cash quarterback this week?
I think he's going to be.
It's either him or Flacco, right?
Well, I mean, one thing with the projections I will say is that these projections are heavily weighted with an overtime game. So like, Mullins scored 22, Jefferson You're projecting him with overtime stats and usage. So I think they are over projecting. I will say that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Scott, what do you think?
I can see this game going under. I mean,
Yeah.
the field is putting a lot of faith in a backup quarterback. Hawkinson's popping as well, but I mean, people, again, the projections are looking at him being so dominant in terms of volume, mostly without Jefferson.
Yep.
Addison went off, but a lot of fluky big plays, not really good volume. On Detroit's side, it's a brutal schematic matchup for Goff, who always struggles on the road. I know people are saying, "Oh, well, it's a dome game. That's what's really important," and I think that makes the most logical sense. But he's also really struggled in road dome games the last 2 seasons, and again, really bad schematic matchup. Really struggles against the blitz as well.
Yeah.
That's important.
Dude, Goff's splits against the blitz are actually worth talking about. So I pulled this. According to our data suite, Goff's turnover worthy throw rate against the blitz is 5.5%. That's 4th highest. When he's not blitzed, it's sub 1% turnover worthy throw rate. That's 2nd lowest in the NFL. Goff is great at protecting the ball when he's not pressured, and the Vikings are going to light him up here. 47% blitz rate. There's downside risk for Goff and Lions here. I'm with you. There's downside risk with Mullins, especially if he's going to, be 20 to 25%, as we're seeing in some ownership projections now. And there's downside risk with Goff here too. I mean, Vikings have been really good defensively as of late, pretty strong team. I'm with you. I actually might bet the under on this at 47.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance they don't show up, but it's also 2nd highest implied point total of the slate. Yeah. Really not too far off of Miami. Vikings defense has been awesome, by the way. Bad schematic matchup for Goff. If someone goes off, it's probably either Laporta or Amon-Ra St. Brown. Laporta hasn't been as consistent, but really good GPP winning potential. He's flashed. St. Brown has a brutal schematic matchup, but what I think matters more is Vikings have just been getting destroyed by slot wide receivers all year and over the last 5 weeks. And that's true for a lot of blitz heavy defenses. You can make a case for Gibbs as just like the new Austin Eckler, or, non-bell cow Austin Eckler, just one of the most valuable backfields in fantasy. And he does seem to be the RB1 by XFP. So those are your options.
Yeah. Johnny, what do you think about Lions backfield?
God, it's just so.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like,
yeah. I mean, the high value touches all go to Gibbs. So, in terms of ceiling, it's obviously him. But losing goal line carries. I mean, obviously, I think he has like the slight lead in goal line touches, but just the fact that he can lose one really hurts, especially at his price tag.
Last 5 weeks, I didn't put a note in, but I think last 5 weeks I looked it up. It's like 11-8 in favor of Gibbs inside the 10. So, I mean, it's still a split, but it's way more in his favor than it was earlier in the year. But in talking through Amon-Ra versus Laporta, I think if they're, Laporta obviously had the great matchup last week against Broncos. This week, Scott, you're outlining the case for him. Laporta has seen 30% of the team's first read targets against the blitz. Sam Laporta is at 18%. Jameson Williams actually 17%. Jameson Williams is like kind of vaguely in play, I think, a little bit. If you're stacking Goff,
he is.
Yeah, if you're stacking Goff, he's in play. 72% route share last week, season high 7 targets. The Lions could do the line thing again and bring him back down to like a 50% route share again, but this is a huge game for them.
It's also deep threats against cover 0.
Yeah.
Vikings more vulnerable deep than anywhere else.
Yeah, if you're stacking Goff, he's in play. I'm not playing him as a one-off, but I do like Amon-Ra.
Yeah, he's also had 0 career games with 50 receiving yards.
Yeah.
One thing I will say, like Mullins, Chandler, and Jefferson are all going to be really, really owned. Playing all 3 of them together is really bad in tournaments. Just don't I don't think you're going to, that you can expect that, Chandler's going to have a receiving touchdown, Jefferson's going to have 2, that kind of thing. So I wouldn't play it. If Chandler really smashes, I think Mullins probably is not the optimal quarterback.
Yeah, that's the leverage, but there's really not much leverage because Chandler's going to be 30%. But you're right. I think that'll cover this game. I think that'll. Oh, did we talk Hawkinson? Because I was looking into this. When Jefferson plays, I mean, Hawkinson's target shares, goes from 28% to 20%.
I think Scott mentioned it.
Yeah. I'm not on Hawk here. Wow, he is popping though for ownership, like 15%. It's kind of surprising, especially with Njoku at 5,300 and McBride at 57.
I think it'll just be McBride and Njoku that everyone plays.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm really surprised to see that ownership projection for Hawk. All right, Packers, Panthers, keeping it moving here. Packers getting 4.5, 37.5 is the total. Jordan Love is going to be down. Not only Christian Watson this week, but it seems like Jaden Reed has a turf toe injury. He is not going to play. AJ Dillon has this broken thumb. He's been limited. He seems like he'll probably be a game time decision, but I mean, you're a running back playing with a broken thumb. I mean, how much are you really going to play? Panthers, who cares? They won last week. Good for them. Johnny, I'll throw it to you first. What do you think about this game, man? This is honestly, this game might be worse than Jets Commanders, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be an ugly game, but we also have Packers with a 21-point team total with a really condensed, skill position group again, where we'll probably have Wicks as a value. We'll have Kraft as a value. Aaron Jones, I imagine, will start to climb up projection models too. So I think these are all guys that are worth playing. I probably wouldn't play Love doubles this week just because Carolina, I don't think, can really push. But Packers players as one-offs are pretty strong. There's a handful of them.
Yeah, Wicks 4,300 projects. Well, he will project the best once everybody updates projections. He was strong last week too. It's a tough spot for Tucker Kraft, Scott, but I think we've been on him for now 2 or 3 weeks in a row. He's still way too cheap. Luke Musgrave, I do not think will be back this week. He didn't practice yesterday.
Yeah, he's fine. I really like Dontavian Wicks. Just a part-time player now forced into being a full-time player. Ranks 20th in yards per route run. That ranks best on the team. Had a 77% route share last week. If he had that route share all year, he'd be averaging 72 yards per game. All these injuries, really, really good schematic matchup, just a terrific value. I also like Adam Thielen as a contrarian play. And I know Johnny's just like, no. He's toast. He's so old. You don't play old guys in the second half of the season. And I get that. And it's not that he destroys Green Bay throughout his career, although there is that narrative. It's just that Green Bay's defense is so unbelievably soft over the middle of the field. Since week 11, here's what slot wide receivers have done against them. 10 catches, 116 yards and a score to Keenan Allen, 9 for 95 to Amon-Ra St. Brown, 8 for 64 to Rashee Rice, 6 for 79 to Wan'Dale Robinson, 10 for 155 to Chris Godwin. All those are team highs. He's a contrarian play. I probably won't end up with any of them, but I wanted to give that shout out.
Yeah, no way I'm playing Adam Thielen, dude. It's not gonna happen. But I do, Scott, I want your thoughts on Aaron Jones. I guess I want both of your thoughts on Aaron Jones. I mean, this was like everyone wanted to play the, running back against the Panthers. No one's going to play Aaron Jones, though. And he got, 18 touches last week. Probably take 18 Aaron Jones touches against the Panthers.
Yeah, 18 on a snap count, too. Don't forget that.
Yeah, I'm on Aaron Jones for sure. And, his ownership's going to rise for sure, especially after this show. But I'm with you. 48% snap rate last week. That's going to come up.
I'm not sure his ownership is because I think Dylan's going to play.
Oh, I don't want him if Dylan plays.
I don't know. He might play, but I don't know how effective Dylan's going to be. I mean, he's like I said, dealing with a broken thumb.
Yeah, there are 2 hurt running backs who've done nothing all year.
Yeah.
I don't think Jones is hurt, though, anymore. He looked fine last week.
Nah, he was himself last week. He's 28 and he's coming off a knee and a hamstring injury, but I was surprised too. He looked like himself last week. And I think we've been on that. Like we were on Eckler looking dusty before he did look dusty. Scott, you talked me off of Derrick Henry last week a little bit because he looked dusty, but Aaron Jones does not look completely dust. All right. I think that'll do it for this game. I mean, Panthers, it's really just Chuba. I mean, it's, he's going to get 25 carries again. His touchdown equity is so low. You know what you're getting yourself into with Chuba.
Thomas Brown loves him. He's top 15 in XFP 3 or 4 weeks in a row. Fast-paced offense. That's the most run-heavy offense in football by pass rate over expectation.
I'd rather just play Ty Chandler.
Green Bay is struggling. I mean, yeah, Ty Chandler is one of the best plays of the slate. But, if you're looking for a unique RB3 for tournaments, he's fine.
No, I think Chuba Carolina D is actually pretty good. Okay. Because I think Wicks will probably might end up being the highest owned wide receiver on the slate. And I mean, there's a chance. Jordan Love has had some faceplant games, so that's certainly possible. And I do like Carolina's like dead to a degree, but they are also playing spoiler for
Chicago
that overall pick. I mean, you got to team has to have something played for, So
yeah, no, I think
they can.
Yeah, their players were obviously thrilled after the game last week beating the Falcons. They haven't won all year. Their defense though, they get no pressure. I mean, they have 3 sacks over their last 6 games. So I hear you. It makes sense, but I just Panthers are they've been no upside all season. All right, I think that'll cover this game. Browns Texans. Let's talk Joe Flacco, baby. Texans are not gonna have CJ Stroud. Womp womp. Just kind of kills this game. A little bit. Browns are getting 340 as a total. Browns have some offensive line concerns. Not only are they going to, obviously, Jack Conklin, Jedrick Wills have been out for weeks, but they got some interior offensive line issues now too. Joel Bitonio is hurt. Yeah, man. Just no Stroud kind of kills this game a little bit. But Scott, Joe Flacco week, man. We were on Joe Flacco 2 weeks ago against Jags with Cooper. This is a really strong spot too. Texans are not good in the back end. Flacco's really cheap. It's just this game, man, might be a total piece of crap. That's the big concern here.
Yep, I'll take over since we lost.
Oh, we lost Scott. Whoops.
Yeah, I like Flacco. This is another one of those, mentioned, Mullins being high owned. Flacco gets a Houston team that's sort of trending down. The Browns have just let Flacco rip. Don't think that's really gonna stop. I mean, he has 44, 45, and 44 attempts. I think they're just going to keep letting him throw, and don't think it's going to matter if it's Case Keenum or whoever on the other side. So I like Flacco. I like Cooper. I like Njoku. It's another team with a 20-ish team total. That's not really going to be all that owned other than Njoku. So I'm definitely on it. I think he should have plenty of success. I like Browns D also, though I do think they'll have some ownership.
Oh yeah.
You think Houston pushes them?
Yeah,
no, I don't really care though. Yeah. I think Flacco's going to chuck either way.
Well, the thing in favor of Flacco chucking is their offensive line falling apart too. This team can't run the ball right now, which is a huge concern. Texans have been really good up front. They dominated against the Titans last week too. So it's definitely going to be another spot where Flacco's throwing it minimum 35, 36 times.
I also think the team understands that if they make the playoffs,
they have to throw.
It's going to have to be on Flacco's back, right? So you got to let him throw right now and get back into that game shape with these guys. And it's they've got 3 more weeks to do it. So I think
Flacco's
doing it.
Dude, it's crazy. He's kind of just playing like Jameis in a way. He's throwing in tight coverage. He's just letting his guys go get it, and we love that. We love that.
Yeah, yeah. Ravens never let him do it. He's finally getting to do it, so he's like, "Fuck it." He's
down there
somewhere.
Making up for lost time. By the way, over on FanDuel, Nick Mullins is 7K, Flacco's 7,100, and Mullins is probably going to be 5 times as owned, and that is just wild to me. That's at least the way it's projecting right now. I'm not saying Nick Mullins is bad play. I like Mullins quite a bit to start this week. I still like him now, but Flacco is really, really strong too. Scott, what do you think about this game, man?
Yeah, like Njoku, really like Njoku, like Amari. You made a good argument for Flacco. Houston side, Devin Singletary, one of the best values of the slate. You know, maybe they just went back to him being the bell cow last week, or maybe it was just game script, but it doesn't really matter. Just not priced like a bell cow. And he's crushed in that role, those 3 games without Dameon Pierce. And then again, last week, like mid-range RB1, volume, production. You can make a case for Nico. You can make a case for Noah Brown just based on, maybe Bobby Slowick's the GOAT. Obviously, you'd rather have CJ Stroud in there, but
yeah,
Cleveland's defense, like this looks like a brutal spot, but they're giving up over 40 fantasy points per game to wide receivers on the road. At home, they're like easily best in the league. Those are just like contrarian plays, but we just know that there's historically been a lot of upside to the Houston wide receiver one.
Yeah, it's a brutal spot, but yeah.
No, again, I don't think it's a brutal spot. Cleveland,
okay.
Much different defense on the road.
Yeah, Denzel Ward's back. I don't know. I have a little more respect for Browns than you do. I will say, I don't think Dameon Pierce is healthy. Bobby Slowick, there's a quote from Aaron Wilson. He tweeted out yesterday, saying it's just a completely different scheme. It takes time. And he also noted that, Pierce is dealing with this ankle injury and, Devin Singletary is just running hot. So it does kind of feel like one of those things where, if Pierce does get started rolling, they could roll with him. But to me, Singletary is the guy. He is 6,200 on FanDuel. He's going to be massive chalk over there. I do not think he's going to be as nearly as popular on DK, but I like him a little bit more than you outlined, Scott. I think the volume will be strong, especially with Pierce likely getting phased out of this offense. But yeah, it does carry the risk that, Pierce rips off a couple of gains and they just roll with him for sure. Johnny, what do you think about Texans backfield and Nico here?
Yeah, I like Singletary a lot. I mean,
yeah.
Pierce played behind Dare Gumbawale last week.
Yikes.
Pretty ugly. So I think, to Scott's point, maybe Pierce just isn't healthy. Maybe they're just kind of like, maybe they're out on him. I don't know. Either way, it's hard for me to see another guy really playing more. I think Singletary is just kind of who they're going to roll with. And he's a good value for sure. I mean, there's a chance he has a bigger workload than Ty Chandler. There's just, because of that bit of uncertainty, he's not going to carry the ownership. So I think he's a pretty good play. I mean, also there's a chance that, the Houston offense is horrible.
Yeah, very real chance. I will say, obviously, going from Stroud to Keenum is, kind of nice for Singletary in a way. Like, Stroud is not checking down. Keenum will, just to protect the ball. We saw that a little bit last week. Singletary got 5 targets. I mean, he had not seen more than like 3, more than 2 in any game with Stroud except for 1. So that is a nice floor boost for Singletary if we can project an every down role, especially on DK. And I got to admit, I mean, I would much rather play Devin Singletary than Chuba Hubbard. I mean, that's where I'm at. At least he has a passing down role. At least this offense has a little bit of a chance to score.
Well, I was assuming
of a chance, I should say.
Singletary and Chandler were going to be uber chalk.
I don't think Singletary will.
I don't think Singletary will. He will be on FanDuel. He's going to be massive chalk on FanDuel, but I don't think he will be on DK.
Singletary was he had ownership projections on most sites because I think everyone's just kind of waiting for the official Madison being out.
Yeah.
Before they boost up Chandler way up.
Well, Chandler's going to be 40%. We can just lock that in. Taylor's going to come way up too. So that's going to bring everybody down.
And I only like Chuba really because he's a bell cow who you can pair with a 2,400 defense.
No, that's perfectly fair.
Yeah.
Panthers is 2,400. I mean, there's your argument for him. But yeah, Singletary, man, I like him a lot just because this passing down role, I don't think people are really projecting him for. Stroud, doesn't check down. Keenum will.
Yep.
Yeah, that's where I'm at on this game. All right, we'll keep it moving here in the afternoon slate. We got a 3-gamer, just 9 games this week with the NFL putting games on Saturday and Sunday. Sunday's slate kind of gets condensed here. Jags, Bucks. Bucks are getting 2.5. 41 is the total. Trevor Lawrence is better than a coin flip to play, according to Doug Peterson this morning. Lawrence was apparently at practice today. He's got a clear protocol tomorrow, but right now he's trending towards playing. He has played through everything in his career. Jags are at 8-6. They kind of have to win this game, and they're probably going to pull some favors to get him out of the concussion protocol. Zay Jones has a hamstring injury. I don't think he's going to play. It looked like he really popped his hammy on that route last week. It's going to be even more condensed with Ridley and Ingram. On the Bucs side, their defense is getting healthy at the right time. They've got like all their dudes back just in time to play the Jags. Really fun game here, especially if Trevor Lawrence plays Johnny. Really fun game. Want your general thoughts? We talked about, Rachaad White right now projects as the best back on the slate, but once, JT News and Zach Moss gets rolled out, he will. But I mean, Rachaad at 7,400, I mean, DK has been way too low on him all year. And I mean, you can still make a good case for Rachaad White at 7,400. He projects really well again here.
Yeah, it's like two pass funnel defenses going against each other. Really want Trevor Lawrence to play because I think if he does, I think this total comes up a lot.
Yeah, what would you have the spread and the total if we knew Lawrence ran?
I mean, I think it should be similar to like the Lions Vikings game.
Yeah,
I think the Bucs probably still should be like a minor favorite just because all the injuries Jags have been dealing with. But yeah, I'm surprised people weren't interested in going back to Baker. And when he draws a matchup against pass funnel, they're a pass funnel. I think this game will be really fast paced. I mean, we definitely need Trevor to be in. Beathard is not good. So if they're both in though, then I would like Mike Evans is a guy I really like if they're both playing. Obviously Calvin Ridley ownership would come up if Trevor Lawrence plays. Evan Ingram. I mean, I'd like all the pieces. I'd probably play a ton of Baker unless his ownership is really going to climb.
Yeah, I'm with you on Baker, and I don't think it will because people are going to want to play Mullins, and we're on Flacco. Yeah, he's kind of wedged in there at 6K, so I'm with you on Mayfield. Obviously, Jag's side is just like so condensed with no Zay, no Kirk. Ingram and Ridley are going to share like 65% of the first read targets. Ingram at 5,400 is really strong. If Lawrence is in, I think he's the second best tight end play. Well, it's really close between him, McBride, and Njoku. I'll put it that way. Scott, what do you think about this game, man?
Yeah, even if Lawrence does miss, I like Ingram a lot.
Yeah.
CJ Beathard targeted him on 43% of his throws the other week. I know we talked about the Zay Jones splits for Ridley, but there's a chance they just go super heavy 12 personnel, and he's been smashing in 12 personnel. Also leads all wide receivers in XFP the last 2 weeks, 25 targets, 350 air yards. It's a favorable matchup, I think. You look at wide receiver ones against Tampa Bay. Jaden Reed on just 15 routes had 17.2 fantasy points. Drake London had 30, Michael Pittman 24, Ayuk 30 plus for Tank Dell, Noah Brown. So he's certainly interesting. You can make a case for Travis Etienne. Maybe they go more run heavy, and he's like a value on paper. He's also like really sucked these last, 6 weeks or so. I probably won't play him, but you can make a case for him. And then Tampa Bay side, obviously Rachaad White in play or strong play. Crazy how far we've come, Graham. He's now the highest priced running back of the slate, and he's still a value. Wide receivers, you can make a case for Chris Godwin, insane target share the last 2 weeks. Although, again, Green Bay, very vulnerable to the middle of the field. And the week before that was an AJ Terrell shadow. And minus those 2 games, Mike Evans has been just absolute fire. You could argue Godwin would still be the better value, just cheaper. But I'd be more inclined to play Evans, just not in a ton of my lineups. I don't think he's like an amazing player or anything.
I would play Baker, Rachaad White, and Evans. That would be my triple.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's kind of like how we talked about with Stafford and Kyron last week. They're positively correlated. You can make the same case for Baker for sure. It is definitely a concern for Evans. I won't say that I'm off of him, but it's a concern for Evans. Last 2 weeks, Godwin has seen 47% of the first reads, just 20% for Evans. And that's after he went, goose egged up in Buffalo. He had the rushing touchdown, I think, or maybe that was this game after that. Anyway, it kind of does feel like one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, Chris Godwin's still really good too. We should throw the ball downfield to him. Last 2 weeks, the ADOTs come way up. They're starting to target him more downfield. His role sucked all year. Like, we just basically ignored him up until this point. I think this is the first week I've actually been on Godwin since, like, I don't know, maybe week 1.
I think that's exactly why I want to play Evans, because I think people are going to play more of Godwin than Evans.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's fair enough. Good logic. I don't have much else from this game, really. It's a really condensed game too. This game is so easy to stack. We got to get Lawrence in there. I was going to mention on FanDuel, 6,800 for Ridley is like an amazing price. He's maybe the best wide receiver play over there. At price.
What about Parker Washington, your boy, Scott?
He's best possible matchup, but he's splitting work with Jamal Agnew as the wide receiver 3. And like I said, maybe more 12 personnel this week.
I actually think Agnew's a little interesting, like for super, super large field stuff. Yeah. All right. Cardinals, Bears, fun game. Bears have a strong team total. They're getting 43.5 is the total. Hollywood Brown on the Cardinals side is out. Greg Dortch has a shoulder injury, something to monitor throughout the weekend. Obviously, anytime we get Cardinals with a little more condensed target tree, it makes things a little easier. But it'll probably just be Trey McBride getting 15 targets again here. Bears side, real quick. Tevin Jenkins, their guard, has a concussion. But they're all systems go here, and we've been on Bears for quite some time. I mean, they should have won last week. They, do the Bears thing where they get up and then they kind of flatline and aren't aggressive enough. But Justin Fields is maybe the best quarterback play on this slate here, Johnny. He's just a fantastic play, 7,100. It's such a good price for him, and Cardinals have been so bad. I mean, they just don't get pressure. That's the big thing. It's like they don't get pressure, and Fields is going to get clean pockets here, and in which case it's going to be a lot of dimes to DJ Moore.
Yeah, I think he's probably like second choice for people in terms of cash game quarterbacks. I think the biggest downside for Fields is concern about Cardinals pushing them, like for him to hit his ceiling. Like, he's been really good, but he hasn't really smashed a ceiling like we'd seen last year. And I think it's because the Bears defense has been so good.
Yep.
So I don't know what is, does he have a 35-point ceiling anymore? I don't know, but he still obviously projects for the highest scoring quarterback on this slate. So I do think this is it's a good spot for the Bears. I just don't love the Cardinals outside of Trey McBride.
Yeah.
So, like in terms of a stack, it's like you're playing Fields more and
McBride.
I guess McBride, and then it just becomes obvious. And so I don't know how much I'll play Fields in tournaments because of that, but obviously he's in a good position. He's a great single entry play, and he easily projects for the highest score. I think he's probably the only quarterback who projects for more than 20 points.
He's the only quarterback that should come even close. Dak could come a little close, but yeah, man, I think over on FanDuel where the prices are a little more elevated, you're going to see less ownership on Fields, more in McBride stacks. On DK, like you said, it is just so easy to get there. I mean, McBride's just 5,700. I mean, what are we doing? Volume he's getting. I mean, he's like Travis Kelce volume at I don't even know, half the price of prime Travis Kelce. Dude's incredible. Matchups just don't even matter. I mean, he went 10 for 102 against the 49ers last week. He is this entire dude. He's so good. He's so good. This game's really simple, Scott. I think it's pretty condensed. I guess I could ask you about James Conner, but he's touchdown or bust. There's better plays.
He's leverage.
Yeah, he's leverage, but there's better plays.
Stacked with the defense, but he's not a good play. If I could only make one GPP this week, it would definitely be Fields plus DJ Moore plus Trey McBride. I know how chalky it is, but against bottom 10 defenses this year, Fields is averaging 28.7 DraftKings fantasy points per game. He's also the most pressure sensitive quarterback in fantasy. Good news. Cardinals dead last in pressure rate last 5 weeks. Easy top 3 matchup against the Cardinals. DJ Moore, I think it's another all-in week.
Yep.
Just look at his numbers. His last 7 games with Fields, just insane. He's 6,900, should be, I don't know, 8,500 just based on those numbers. And again, I wasn't that high on him last week because I worried about Cleveland's pass rush. That's not a concern this week. I also like Donta Foreman. I think he's a better leverage play than Connor. I think he's a legitimately good play, 4,700. Dominated the backfield in terms of XFP in week 14. Week 15, fewer opportunities. That's carries plus targets than Roshan, than Khalil Herbert. But so he's very game script sensitive. But he does get all the goal line work, still led the backfield in XFP last week. And so game script's going to be great. Also an amazing matchup. Arizona is giving it the most fantasy points per game to running backs since week 7. He's 4,700. He's also leveraged. You don't need to play him as leverage, but really strong punt. What do you think, Johnny?
I can't play Foreman, man.
Yeah, I can't get there either. I mean, you're right. If they do smash, he'll get 15 carries, but I mean, they've been doing weird shit with their backfield all year. I mean, Roshan Johnson led them last week. I mean, I don't know.
I could see it with Bears D. It's just probably not something I could get to.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. It's a strong, that's a good contrarian thought though. Trying to see Foreman's 5,900 on FanDuel. I think you could get a little bit more behind it, Scott, on FanDuel, where you don't need PPRs. All right. Colts Dolphins game of the week. Dolphins getting 1, totals 50.
Cowboys Dolphins.
What did I say?
Colts Dolphins.
Oh, whoops. That would be a significantly less game. I don't know why I'm thinking about Colts. Cowboys Dolphins. Have that again. Dolphins 1, 50s total. Some injury notes. Obviously, we're waiting on Tyreek Hill, but I think he's going to play. Devon Achane is back. He's fine. Teron Smith and Zach Martin on the Colts side are a little banged up. Definitely something to watch for Dak and Cowboys, but obviously just a ginormous game here for both sides. Cowboys trying to stay in the NFC East hunt. Dolphins trying to chase down Baltimore before Week 17 to stay in the hunt for the AFC number 1 seed. Johnny, I'll throw to you first, man, for your thoughts on this game. CeeDee Lamb and Dak did not come through last week. I mean, Lamb kind of did, but Dak absolutely shit the bed. What do you think about Dallas here? Because they're by far the most interesting side to try and figure out.
I want to get back on Dallas. They're just so expensive. This whole game is so expensive.
Yeah.
So, I will definitely have some shares of Dak and CD, but to pay $8K for Dak, $9K for CD really, really limits you, especially when these are, we've seen Miami want to run the ball more, in the last, month and a half. And we've also seen Dallas, it's able to be, they're able to be run on. So this is a game that can go. You don't look at this game and you're like, oh yeah, this definitely goes for 50. You're like, 50 seems right. It just doesn't get you as excited as it would have if this was on the, on the slate for like week 3. So I don't know, man. I don't really want to play Dak, but I feel like we should, because we could definitely see Dak have a 35-point game and everyone's like, yeah, we missed that one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I hear you on all the price stuff. It's it's impossible to play Tyreek with those lineups with Dak and CD. If you play Waddle, I mean, it's just as tight. It's hard to stack up this game. But I will say, we were kind of talking about Lions Vikings being a potential letdown spot. It makes sense. It's a late season divisional matchup. I think this game goes off. I think we see both these offenses go off here. It's just hard to play this game. It's really hard to play this game, Scott. What do you think about the backfield? Dolphins backfield here. Mostert smashed once again last week, got 2 touchdowns, but Achane's playing a ton. How do you see this backfield playing out this weekend?
Yeah, I think I want to make a rule for tournaments this week. Must start one Miami running back. I mean, I'm toying with the idea. I want to hear your guys' thoughts, but just immense slate wrecking potential. Both running backs easily lead the slate in DraftKings fantasy points per game. They've combined for 5 with 28 or more points. Detroit's the only other backfield to do that more than once on this slate, and they only did it twice. And the key point is Dallas has a bad run defense. They've had a horrible run defense all year. It's just that teams can't take advantage of it because they don't have the game script to do so. But we saw that last week with Buffalo, nearly 300 yards from scrimmage, 3 touchdowns. And so, yeah, I think Miami can get that game script. They're so run heavy and they have so much success doing that. I like Achane the most theoretically. He's the most stylistically similar to James Cook, who just went off. I do worry about that toe injury, though. Mostert dominated the work last week. Before that, Achane led in XFP in 3 straight games. I think I still prefer Achane by a margin, but it's tricky enough. I feel like Johnny's going to say, well, if you have to pick between these 2 guys, why don't you just play Chandler and Singletary and whatever? But
yeah, it is ugly that you have to pick and they're both 7K. That's what makes it so difficult. But I do think they're obviously in play. It's 2 of those guys where I feel like I'll have 15% of either and just hope for the best.
Yeah, go over the field and then just pray one of them pops and you get the right pieces with it.
It just, I don't know. I mean, there's been weeks where I just end up deleting them from my pool because I just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Which I think more often than not has been right. To not play either of them.
Yeah, I think this is I'm with Scott. I align with Scott 100% on this. And on FanDuel, Achane is 7,500. He's split in between Rashad White and Brees. No one is going to play him.
No one's going to play is Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Really? I thought he would be chalky.
No.
People are going to play Jefferson, man. Everybody's going to want to play that 8100 Jefferson.
The real question is does he actually have a high ankle sprain?
I mean, Edwin thinks he does.
Part of the thing with Tyreek is he could just run straight line routes all day and be fine.
Yeah. He needs 153 yards per game to get 2,000. And he does want it.
Yeah, and Dallas runs the second highest rate of single high safety coverage in the league. And Tyreek Hill is averaging 5.2 yards per route run against one high safety looks. It's easily the best in the league. So, I mean, if Tyreek is projecting for 9%, you could just make a case to say, hey, I just want to play Tyreek and just let it be. Absolutely can do that.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with him. It's the math says you should never play a guy who's playing on a high ankle sprain.
Yep. But, Tyreek Hill has broken math for 5 years now. He's broken the math. So,
yeah.
Any interest in Pollard?
Yeah, he makes sense. He's the top running back on the slate by XFP per game. He's priced as, I don't know, RB9 or whatever. My inclination is just he's kind of overrated every single week and fading him hasn't hurt you at all. But there is that. It's leverage. Like you said, all these guys are cheap. I do definitely want some Prescott Lamb lineups. I mean, those guys were just breaking DFS for 9 straight weeks and they flopped last week. So I'll want to go back to that in some capacity.
Yeah. Because there's definitely a chance that it was just a letdown spot going to Buffalo. So, and then they come back and we're like, yeah, they were actually fine. But definitely nobody's going to play them.
Ferguson's another guy in play.
Yeah. I do think Pollard's healthier. The fact that he loses 30% to these other guys is just so brutal.
Nah, Pollard has looked like himself in recent weeks. He's got a little bit of that burst back for sure. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, we've made cases against Pollard all year. You know, you can make the same one. He's a strong technical value, but there's obviously outs for sure. He's 7K on FanDuel, though. I mean, Devin Singletary is probably going to be the chalk. I'd imagine. I think Pollard will probably be the second or third, maybe behind Chuba. I think that'll do it. That'll do it for this 9-game slate. You guys want to make a lineup here?
Sure.
I get a run actually, so you guys would have to do that without me.
Okay, and we'll wrap it up here. That's okay. We've been on for an hour. This has been great stuff. Scott, hope you win another 25 G's this weekend, my friend. Johnny,
I don't, because then we'll have to hear about it. That'd be
I can't imagine what your DMs have been like. I'm sure it's hilarious though. But yeah, man, Johnny, you're gonna win 25 G's this week. It's your turn this time. We'll see you guys at the top of the leaderboards. For Thomas, I'm Graham. Catch you guys next week.